some of y'all some bums. Okay, some of y'all, you know how that be. Some of you homosexuals, y'all bums, y'all don't really deserve much. All right, but we got somebody else in the chat. Let's see what they got to say. I think you got to unmute, bro.
No, my name is.
Okay.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
All right, so greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna, special episode of Noteworthy. Yesterday, I tuned into the Poor Man's podcast. I'm really trying to understand what's going on. He had a topic, Kevin Samuel, Black Manosphere, talking points, whether or not they were valid. So I decided to call in because I was typing in the chat and he was like, call in, Amuna. So I was like, bet, no problem. So let's listen to this discussion and then I'm going to expound a little bit.
I'm doing well. I've been commenting. I've been seeing let me put on my camera. I've been seeing. How are you? I've been seeing the videos and I've been commenting because I'm trying to figure out the argument. Before you can debate, you have to have what is the statement? What are we debating? And that's where it kind of gets confusing with all of the videos that's on YouTube. It's like, what is your position before we can say, okay, come and debate me? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. So what I want is for Black men and Black women to both be held accountable for their actions. Historically speaking, I believe that Black men have and are doing better. On the women's side, though, it's a little bit more questionable. According to the statistics, in the 70s, the rate of out-of-wedlock births was 23%. That rate has now skyrocketed to 78%. You know, these are stats that we all know.
And that's one of my contentions, the thought that these are stats that we all know. In this community, stats are thrown around out of context, no references, no citing sources. So we don't know whether or not the stats are in or outside of context, right? And the assumption that everyone knows the stats based on just repeating them consistently. Another question is how, if we're talking about birth rates, how does one conclude that men are being held accountable, but women are not when it takes both of them to come together in order to create this birth rate? But let's continue to listen.
We can't go further as a community until we build economics. And the best way to build group economics right now is marriage or unionship. So if the women are have a distaste for the men because they believe that they're better than the working class because they're the ones getting the degrees, which, by the way, if you're a professional woman, you are.
See the quotation marks? I do quotation marks a lot, and that's a non-verbal cue that what I'm about to say may either not be valid or I have issues with this term professional woman. So that would, even though the tone may not seem like I'm coming for you, for somebody who's in a profession and they're a professional woman, they may take offense to that, and that may cause the conversation to delay a bit.
Your chances of getting 70% of professional women are single. Okay, because they have a distaste for the working class men. So basically, my goal is to get people together to build group economics so that a lot of the problems that Black people are complaining about, we don't have to worry about because we have the money to deal with the situation.
Okay, so you want the goal is unification.
Yes.
In a simplified version. And the thought process is that the videos, the commentary is supposed to show women the error in their ways, and then this will they will humble themselves and then become unified. Is that the goal?
Well, some part of it is just to warn some women before certain things happen. I believe that a lot of the videos that I do, them women are gone. All right. A lot of them women in the videos, these are extreme cases and they're out of the window.
So I would say that we have to take note also that some men, well, at least he is aware that he's picking very extreme cases in order to illustrate a point. Oftentimes, Kevin Samuels, Manosphere, all of these, they're picking very extreme cases. They're guilty of doing the same thing that the women are doing. It's like going to the extreme case to illustrate why, quote, men are no good or quote, you deserve a high value man. And so when we leave out all of the people in the mirror, we paint a picture that is not really accurate. And so being honest about that, I appreciate it being honest that those are extreme cases, and that everybody's not running around doing and behaving. All women are not running around doing and behaving as they are trying to make or get people to believe.
But it is to warn women in the future, because I don't believe the conversations being had to Black women of their options before they carry a baby to term. There's no way you can have a 78% out of wedlock rate unless somebody doesn't know something. and they have many options. So a lot of the videos, yes, the commentary is to get a conversation going so that people can understand that women have to be held accountable too. Because we're saying that it's just the men in our community that have the problem, but a lot of the problems are coming from the women that aren't being talked about because you can't talk to women nowadays.
I mean, I would agree that both parties should be held accountable, but for something that's tangible, speaking about birth rates, right? What is the perspective on what sex is for? What is the purpose? Because if the accountability is being put on the woman, there are many things that she can do. Some of those things include killing and aborting, right? So if the very basis of which men are pursuing women that gets them into that they agree to come into positions to where they humble themselves before wedlock, we have to look at who is doing the causative action, who is going towards these women and wanting to humble them in a way in which is going to make them this statistic. Do you understand what I'm saying? So
I know that was a bit wordy, but you got the point. Who is the cause and effect? I think we have to go back to universal laws, because again, with these type of conversations, if we don't have a foundational thought, we're going to be missing like two ships in the night. Basically, more simplified, I was asking, what is the cause of the effect that we're seeing right now? Because the woman carries the effect, she carries the stigma, she carries the statistics. The thought is that she is not being held accountable, but to be held accountable is to carry this, right? If the numbers reflect on you, if the single mother reflects on the mother, which is a female, she is being held accountable in that space. So that's kind of what I was saying. There's more to it, but let's continue to listen.
What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is the woman pursuing the man, or is the man pursuing the woman, even if it's not for commitment, if he just wants to be with her?
Oh, I'm sure it's the men pursuing the women on most cases.
See, I like clear, concise questions, for the most part, and answers. And I appreciate him for his honesty. So the men are pursuing the women. Now they're setting the tone for what they expect. If the women are susceptible to the desires of the men, like it says in the Bible, and her desire shall be towards him, then when he sets the tone for what he wants and what is going to make her get that validation from him, sometimes he tells the truth. Most times he sells her, the Brooklyn Bridge for $1. He tells her all the things she wants to hear so that he can get what he wants. Men being held accountable is saying to the men, stop lying to these women. Stop approaching these women to lay with them and have sex with them, and you have no intentions to be with them, to make them a wife and make them a mother, right? But we'll continue.
Okay. I have no whim about that. But women have the selective choice to choose who they want to lay down with. And not only that, they have the selective choice to choose who they want to carry the term with. And when I say that, I don't mean that they don't have options before. Obviously, you have birth control, which should be spoken about more in our community. You have condoms. If you don't want to use birth control, you can use condoms. If you don't want to use condoms, you have Plan Bs. So a lot of people go straight to abortion, but that's an extreme.
Before we go to the abortion conversation, I think on another panel, having the conversation about the truth about the tactics, even though when women have the say of who they lay with, right? Men cannot be absorbed of the fact that they use tactics, tricks, manipulation, coercion, and sometimes force to take or to usurp that authority that the woman has, right? And in all times or other societies, that's why you usually had a male to guard that woman, because they were understood that men would use these tactics, tricks, and manipulation to get what he wanted from the woman, right? So we have to be honest about that, because if we're not, then it looks like, well, you're just slipping. No, once you allow the person to get into your ear, once you allow the person to quote, kick or spit game to you, once the woman starts to believe him, her defenses go down and she becomes more vulnerable. Let's just be honest.
Case, you don't need to go all the way that far if you know your options before. And if you don't want to carry a baby to term, I don't believe you should be laying down with the men anyway. And I don't believe the men should be laying down with the women either.
Okay, that's kind of where I wanted to see. If we're going to talk about how we move forward in unity, we have to find places that we connect and agree. So it has to be some foundation laid. Sex is for fill in the blank. And if we can't agree on that's going to show why there's so much confusion. If it's for procreation and building generational wealth and bringing forth children, then it shouldn't be just thrown all around the place because it's Tuesday.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
And so we agreed on that point. This thought of casual sex is the issue. This thought of, even when Kevin Samuel says, who do you think you're holding it from? Like the man is entitled. And if you don't give him, then you're not even worthy of him considering you. You can't have a mentality of, oh, you're a single baby mother, and at the same time hold the mentality that I have a right to your front, right? They have a right to enter. These are contradictory thoughts that is causing dissonance in the community. Casual sex, and I'm going to say it on record and somebody could come share, we could have this discussion, is at the crux of the matter when it comes to the deterioration of marriages, the deterioration of family, the deterioration of the value of children. This thought of casual sex. But let's continue.
But that's what's happening. What's happening is people are speaking out of two sides of the mouth. On one side, pumper and dumper, and on the next side, it's your fault because you had a baby. Right? It's not making sense. I don't think we're connecting the act with the statistics or the thought process with the statistics.
The problem is there's a misconception that a minority of men are out to impregnate women and not take care of their children. A minority of black men. That's something that black men do, and it's just not true. Okay, that's just not true. What we have is a small minority of black men that are going out and getting a lot of women pregnant. Okay.
Wait. Come again. I'm sorry. Come again. I want to follow you on this. So you're saying that all of these statistics that we hear about, this is a small minority of men that's impregnating the larger pool of women?
Once again, if anybody has that study, those statistics, please drop it in the box below. Because, we say things, but, and I keep bringing up abortion. You're going to hear me bring up abortion, which some may see as a disconnected topic, but I don't think it is. And by the way, let's just continue. I'll talk about it when we get there.
Absolutely. I believe about 50% of men are black men are single and don't have any children. We couldn't say about black women.
Here's a question to ask a lot of people who may be listening is how many men, when they were younger, accidentally impregnated a woman and asked her to get an abortion? Right?
Oh,
because that happens, right?
See, here's the thing.
See, the reason I ask that is because if you're going to give me a statistic that 50% of black men, quote unquote, do not have any children, but we don't equal into the fact that they may have impregnated a woman at some time in their life and they don't have any children because the children were taken out of the picture. So that statistics, it's like how many percent, some professional women, many professional women don't have any children, but that doesn't mean that they were never pregnant. It just means that no children were, quote, brought to term. So this is why I keep bringing the point up, because we can't divorce the two. We have to look at the whole picture to get an understanding of these numbers and these statistics that we are ripping and running with in the streets.
I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that asking a woman to get abortion is good. I believe that is an extreme example that if both parties know their options beforehand, they can negate that risk. That's a very extreme option. That's why I don't even really like to talk about abortion, because if you've been proactive...
It's not extreme. Millions, like I said, watch the documentary. There's one called Black Genocide. Look up the work of Dr. Reverend Childress. There's a lot of information. It's not some one-off or something that's different. Millions have been performed, right? Some women with 2, 3, some women, this has become their form of birth control, right? I did the research on that and I have the videos on the channel. You could check that out. I'll probably go look and put the link in the box.
In what you're doing, if you know you're sleeping around with bums, and if you're a bum and women have birth control. Men don't have a birth control. Not that I know of, at least.
Men do have birth control. It is, do not go and planting your seed if you don't want the fruit to come forth. That is the causative action. We're talking about something to control an action. The purpose is to have birth. This is why everything to control the birth is called birth control or contraceptive, something against conception, right? So that means we're going against the grain. We're going against nature. That means if you don't want the woman to be impregnated, then do not lay with the woman. It's really simple, but that will put the responsibility back on the leader, back on the male, and that's a problem. So the male wants to pass it off to the woman. He wants to do what he wants to do, pass it off to her, and then she become responsible for what happens next.
I want to say bums. Years ago, are you familiar with Dr. Childress, the one who talks about? Okay, he talks about he did a documentary. He's talking about black abortion in the black community. I spoke to him many years ago because there's not a lot of conversation in the community around the amount of abortion and what's really going on. If we're going to have the single mother statistics, we also need to have the conversation on the other side. For instance, Chili from TLC, she shared a story.
Where he cuts me, so let me go into my Chili from TLC story. In one of these documentaries, Chili from TLC, she wasn't with a bum. She was at Dallas Austin. She was at the beginning of her career and she got impregnated. He wasn't a bum. They were in the music industry, and she cries and breaks down because he and they advised her to abort the child. Right? In another situation, we see Lauryn Hill made a whole song about Zion. She wasn't a bum, right? Who impregnated her wasn't a bum, but they wanted her, because of her position in the music industry, that she shouldn't have this child because it would take away all of what she was working towards. So this conversation about only bums, or people being impregnated with bums. Many people in one time a few years ago, I put up a post talking about abortion, and many people came out. This is a topic that is kind of like taboo. It's easier to talk about single mothers, but it's not. And mostly the women who got that very first abortion, it was the man who told them to, who cajoled them into it, manipulated them into it, guilted them into it until they did it. Or if it wasn't the man, it was the parents. So that's something to consider.
But I'm sorry. I think you're just missing the whole point. You don't have to go to the extreme of abortion if we're having conversations with our daughter that tells them, take birth control. Are you sexually active? Take birth control. I don't recommend you become sexually active because we know that the more partners you have before marriage, the less likely.
You see, he said he believes in accountability on two sides. Have conversation with our daughters. Have conversations with your son. Son, do not go around looking to lay with all these girls. Son, keep your energy, retain your strength. Wait until you're ready to build up your family and this generational wealth. Son, don't misuse your procreative tool. Don't humble and defile these girls, son. The son is the causative action. People lock up their daughters and let go of their sons. That is backwards. Yeah. You tell your daughter, don't be beguiled. Don't believe somebody who comes and tells you. But now you're telling him, what you're telling your daughter when she has to protect herself against the male is that you can't trust him. So if we're having an argument about why you can't build in the quote unquote black community, but at the same time you have to tell your daughters you can't trust him, that's why you can't build. How can I build if I cannot trust you? So the building of the trust comes with the causative action. The male, he has to present himself in a way that he can be trusted. This is why I said this conversation is not balanced.
Your marriage is to last. So I don't recommend you do it, but if you decide to do it, let's get you on some birth control.
Can I ask the birth control? What when you said the woman is not, you said that earlier, women in society are not being held accountable. She's being held accountable for not conceiving. When she's taking that birth control, it's affecting her body. It's increasing the chances of her having cancer, right? All of these things, we talk about statistics.
All right.
Health-wise.
My phone is going to freeze, so I'm going to come back on the other end. Hope you're enjoying it. Let me know your thoughts below. Let me get the other part of the clip and we'll continue.
Hey, you back?
Yeah, sorry about that. My phone was back and he's gonna die. So. Essentially what I was saying is that it's deeper. There's an echo. I'm not sure this is on my side.
No, I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you. I got that good Wi-Fi.
You can hear an echo?
No, I don't hear one.
Okay. So essentially, I was speaking about the birth control and saying the woman should take responsibility. That affects her body. That affects her biology. And it exposes her to different kinds of cancers. because of what the birth control pill does. So essentially, when you take sex out of the confines of marriage, you're introducing all of what you're talking about.
No, yeah, I disagree. No.
I want to also add that even sex within marriage, there's a whole conversation of the family cannot afford any more children, and the wife should go on birth control, and you should not deny your husband, but if you get pregnant, it's your fault. We're seeing a breakdown in understanding, and it's causing a lot of confusion. So let me just add to that it just doesn't happen outside of marriage. It also happens inside of marriage. And this conversation of how it affects the woman's body, he's saying she's not taking accountability, but she's expected to be responsible to availing her body and her reproductive functions to the male, and also responsible for stopping the consequence of the action. That's a heavy load, no? That's kind of heavy, but let's continue.
Here's the thing. I agree with you. I agree that people shouldn't be doing it before marriage in the first place. But if you are doing it before marriage, don't be getting pregnant and carrying the baby to term. If you want to go out and mess with men that you shouldn't be messing with, these are risks you're trying to take. And the problem is that we
don't get pregnant versus don't impregnate her. In order for her to get pregnant, she had to get impregnated. So again, it's only going one way. Women don't get pregnant versus men don't impregnate her, right?
Because I've heard this argument before when they talk about cancer, right? When they talk about the possibility of cancer through birth control. Why don't we ever talk about the possibility of dying of a heart disease from the 80% obesity rate, which is the number?
Moving the goalposts. So a pertinent point is put on the table. We're talking about debate. We're talking about discussion, right? We have to look at all the logical fallacies, the way in which people navigate around talking points so that right? So we talk about cancer. So instead of dealing with the cancer, we're going to switch the topic. We're going to move the goalposts. And now we want to talk about heart disease, right? So can we agree or disagree that birth control in different forms contributes to the ill health of the woman's body? It alters her body because it's going against nature. It's called contraception. That means what you're putting into your body is not natural and it's going against nature. But we're not going to touch that. And now we're going to go into another issue. And we have to be careful of topic hopping, because all it does is like a bunny down the trail. We don't really resolve any one issue, right? And I think if we're talking about unity, we have to deal with the issues that are on the table.
One killer of black women. You know what I mean? Like, why do we only talk about the future potential effects of something when it's birth control? You know, like,
it's not really future. Where I'm going? It's not really future. Black women constitute a large number of people who are dying from cancers.
Various types of cancers, also the increased rate of fibroid tumors, leading in diabetes. You know, we can talk about all the high blood pressure, all of these things. We could talk about all those things, but if we want to muddy the waters, we're talking about the male putting the responsibility on her to compromise her body. Understand, her body's compromised both ways. When she has the child, her entire system changed. That's the natural course. When she uses birth control, contraception in the way of things that are injected in your body, her body is also compromised. In what way is the male's body being compromised?
Types of cancers. Heart disease is also an issue. I'm not a proponent for people being overweight. It's like apples and oranges. We can put both of it on the table. It's all an issue.
Right, but where in the mainstream media outside of the black manosphere are these?
You see how I just made that a non-issue? Some people, when you get into arguments, not even really healthy debates, it's like, now I'm going to wrangle the point. But because I took that factor away and say, I'm not going to argue with that, we can put that both on the table as long as you're not negating the statement that I just made. And instead, he just hopped right on over it and went into something else. So we have to pay attention. Sometimes we may not be aware. We may do it intentionally and we may do it unintentionally.
Conversations being had.
Which ones?
The ones that we're having.
Now, instead of acknowledging what I'm saying, he's going on to where is this happening in the manosphere? We're having the conversation right now. So why aren't we still having the conversation that's on the table? We're going to now trying to justify the need for the manosphere. But if we're having the conversations in this way, there's no wonder we're not really making any headway or gaining any ground.
Now, when we talk about these options before pregnancy, and we say women close your legs, don't be having men going in and out of you. And when we say obesity rate, the 80% obesity rate is the number one killer of black women in America right now.
Women close your legs. Men do not try to get between women's legs. Actually, it goes, men do not try to get between women's legs. Women close your legs. If the woman is put in front, and then you say, why is the woman trying to be in front? Because you keep putting her there. Why do you keep putting her in front and then argue that she feels like she's in front? Stop putting her first. And who's responsible? Put the male first. Speak to them. Do you know how many manosphere videos can be made about the way in which these men are speaking about the women? These videos are oftentimes these women, it's a response to what is already being said. But let me stay on topic.
Like, where are these conversations happening? And this is why I question the amount of accountability that our women are receiving and how they're taking it. Because when we say this, we're somehow like your enemy. When
I don't
really
think.
Just things that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
When it's really just things that are helping you, like in terms of the feedback. Because I would admit, black men for a while and still do need criticism. And I always say black men should do better, but we actually have and are doing better. But we can't work with a 70% out of wedlock rate. We just can't do it.
Work with it, bruh. You are creating it. The men is leading, and the men is the one who decides whether or not you get married. And the men are also the ones who are defiling these women so that they are not marriageable. And the men are compromising the trust because how can you not? It's like saying, I throw beer cans in my backyard and cigarette butts, but I can't plant out there. I just can't do it. But you're the one who's throwing beer cans and cigarette butts in the backyard every night. You can't pollute your area and bring down the property value of your area and then turn around and say, I can't live here. You're not connecting the cause and the effect. And that's one of the problems in my estimation.
We can't work with 80% of women being unattractive because they're obese. It's not something we're trying to do.
Here's one.
I would say something to the obese thing. That is a fact. Many women in general have come into the space where they allow themselves, because of emotions, because of society, because of modernism, because of fast food, because of lack of discipline and appetite, to get to spaces where it's clear that you're not in control of that area of your life. That is a fact. Now, some would say how and why, and I just named some of the factors of how and why. So, yes, so I just named some of the factors of how and why, and that's definitely a valid talking point. What is going on? But just coming to someone and beating them up, hey man, you fat, nobody ain't gonna want you, and that's not necessarily gonna get it. That's not gonna motivate them and keep their esteem intact. It may make them do some harmful things to themselves. So if this is really about unity, we also have to be mindful of how you go in. Would you want a surgeon who's just going to come in with a hacksaw, or do you want a surgeon who's going to come in with precision? Your choice.
One thing, and I know my phone is about to go out, but this is my thoughts. I did a video yesterday on what Sir Mix-a-Lot did to the culture, right? And how that song Baby Got Back went to the world, platinum, the Billboard, and created a certain thought process, right?
Okay.
Then people fed into this. And it got out of control. And now the same men who were propagating it on one side, they're on the other side saying, oh no, you're wrong for X, Y, and Z. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when we talk about accountability,
are we equating the rate with the song Baby Got Back or whatever?
What I'm equating is the culture that men set up at a certain point in time. And the things that the women fed into. And now that it has gotten out of hand, those sons of those men or those children are now on the other hand saying, wait a minute, But if we're gonna be honest, we have to connect the two. That this behavior didn't just come from nowhere.
Right, but
Do you understand what I'm saying?
yeah, but at the end of the day, regardless of where it came, but this is the lack of accountability.
No, you cannot say at the end of the day, regardless of where it came from. If you that's the problem. Like I said, it goes back down to foundation, the way we think about what we are seeing. You have to trace the source. For those who may be new to the channel, that's all I do. I will dig in the crates. I will get, because if you don't understand the source, you don't understand what you're seeing, right? And you can come on these places and misinform people. It does matter where it's coming from. And by the way, YouTube blocked my Baby Got Black little thing. I'm gonna come back and do it again, y'all, and I'm gonna do it better this time, right? I was playing some videos and they made a lot like that and they blocked my thing, but don't worry, I'm coming back. And my point was that once again, the causative action does not connect the effect with their initial action, and that's the problem. But I'll come back and expound on that another time.
What I'm talking about. As soon as there's a problem amongst black women, we go right back to the men, and we say that
You
this is
have
because of
to.
the men. But no, that's just not true. It's
You
simply
have to.
not
We're
true.
connected.
When you talk
We're
about
connected. You have to.
how in the world black women in 2021, ain't nobody listening to Baby Got Back no more, but a lot of people got
Yes,
a lot of
they
back.
are. The man is still making $2,000 a day in royalties.
Come on, man. We can't do. Come on now. We got to. All right. I appreciate you for coming on. I like what you're doing. You put it out there. But yes, I am about unity. Okay, so I do love the sisters out there, and I do hope that y'all know black men and black women get together and build economics. That's what I'm all for. But I appreciate you.
Listen, thank you.
Yeah, listen. Now that it was a good conversation. Yeah, definitely people. I'm gonna come back with the Baby Got Back conversation. I'm gonna break it all the way down because I like to take my time. You know what I'm saying? Get the fine tooth comb and go in there and do what it needs to do. But once again, thank everybody for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, leave your comments below. If you have any questions, if you'd like to come on and have a discussion, we could do that too. Everybody have a blessed day. Oh, I forgot, like, subscribe, share.